Hi, I'm Candace, founder of Sufficient Grace Social Services, where our mission is to create awareness for the prevention of child molestation, child sexual abuse and neglect, to help children and adults to gain confidence and to find their voice, and also to help find healing from past sexual abuse and other childhood traumas through our faith in Jesus Christ. Today, I wanted to talk about what is child abuse and neglect and what are some ways to spot child abuse and neglect. So, what is child abuse and neglect? The Federal Child Abuse Prevention and Treatment Act defines child abuse and neglect as any recent act of or failure to act on the part of a parent or caretaker, which results in death, serious injury, physical or emotional harm, sexual abuse or exploitation, or an act or failure to act which prevents an imminent risk of serious harm. And child maltreatment, according to the World Health Organization, is all types of physical and or emotional ill treatment, abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, negligence, and commercial or other exploitation, which results in the actual or potential harm to a child's health, survival, development, or dignity in the context of a relationship or responsibility, trust, or power. According to the Administration for Child and Family, it is estimated that around 600,000 children were determined to be victims of maltreatment in 1 year alone. So, what are some types of child abuse and neglect or maltreatment? Some examples of child abuse are slapping, pinching, choking, punching, kicking, or shoving a child, or using excessive force when spanking a child. Some other examples of child abuse are touching a child inappropriately or in a sexual manner, inappropriately using drugs on a child, or using physical restraints on a child. Some examples of child neglect are failing to provide for a child's physical needs, such as food and shelter, failing to provide for a child's safety and security, or inappropriate supervision of a child. Failing to provide for a child's medical needs, educational needs, or social emotional needs, including their mental health. So, how to spot whether a child is experiencing child abuse or neglect or maltreatment. There are many signs and symptoms of a child experiencing child abuse and neglect. I've chosen to highlight a couple of these signs and symptoms that I felt were really important. But I will also uh, um, I will also have a link to the full list that I found online in the description box. Some behavior clues of child abuse and neglect are a child developing fears and anxiety, having nightmares or sleep issues, or unable to focus or concentrate in school, and decreased performance in school. A child developing aggressive behaviors or withdrawing from once enjoyed activities or friend groups. A child beginning self-harm behaviors or an increase in sexual curiosity or behaviors. Some physical clues, um, of a child experiencing child abuse and neglect are poor hygiene, lack of care of medical needs, burns on skin, bite marks, bruises in various stages of healing, a child complaining about itching and burning in the genital area. So, like I said, those are just some some examples that I chose from the list that I found online, but I will also link the full list that I found in the description box. So, what can you do if you suspect a child in your life is experiencing child abuse and or neglect or child maltreatment? This is something that I talk about in all of my videos. If you suspect that a child is being sexually abused or experiencing any type of abuse, you can first and foremost always contact your local law enforcement agency, which is 911, or if you have a dedicated number in your area for the police or any law enforcement, that is the numbers to call. You can also call your local or county child abuse hotline. There are child abuse hotlines for the nation, which is 1-800-4-CHILD. And there are also hotlines that are available to be found in internet searches for your particular area. One thing that I have in my state, which is Illinois, or in my county, I'm not sure which one, which is Cook County, is the child welfare, like DCFS line that you can call if you suspect that a child is experiencing any type of abuse or mistreatment, and they will have you fill out a incident report, so to say, to talk about what you see and why you suspect that a child is being abused or neglected or mistreated. And so that is the same as in any other state in the United States, and I'm sure in many countries as well. There are dedicated phone numbers to call for disclosing child abuse and neglect and child maltreatment. And I would not recommend that you ask specific questions to the child, because in most cases, children, I mean, if you see a bruise on a child, you could definitely ask, oh, where did you get this bruise from? You know, but if it's a situation where a child gets multiple bruises, or you see that they come to school intermittently, like maybe a couple of days a week, or they miss a week, and then when they come back, they have bruises or something like that, it is very important to be able to um, look out for the best interest of that child and call Child Protective Services right away if you suspect it. And it, in most situations, when you call those numbers to make a report, you're making it in good faith. So, say for instance, the child abuse or neglect or maltreatment is unfounded, you're not going to be held liable for making that call, because you, in good faith, thought that something was wrong with the child. And I would have to say that that is one of the reasons why people don't disclose or don't contact Child Protective Services, because they don't know for sure. And in most cases, when you know for sure, the child has gone through so much abuse that they may be at risk for severe bodily injury or even death, at the point where people are like, oh my gosh, this was really going on. So it's very important that if you suspect it at all, to make that call. And so with that, that's what I want to talk about today. I know it's a very serious subject, but so many of our children in the United States and all over the world are being abused every day. And for those that have been um, really investigated and found to have been mistreated or been through abuse and neglect, there are so many children that are under the radar that never ever get the help that they need, because so many people are not willing to make that step to at least alert Child Protective Services about your suspicions or your gut feeling or something that you've seen that's kind of off. And so a lot of children go abused pretty much their whole entire childhood because of that fact. And so I really encourage you, if you have any type of gut feelings, suspicions, or anything about a child being abused sexually, abused physically, emotionally, and that's one of the things that goes under the radar a lot, is emotional abuse. If you see a parent or a caregiver putting a child down and constantly yelling at a child or mistreating them emotionally, it's 9 times out of 10, there's probably physical abuse going on as well. But even if there isn't, that is going to affect the child when growing up and getting older, and their confidence in themselves and being able to adjust to situations. So in situations like that, it is important to call Child Protective Services as well. And with that, once again, I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation. And as always, if you are a child or if you know of a child who has been or is currently being sexually abused or experiencing any type of abuse, please call your local law enforcement agency, 911 or 1-800-4-CHILD, which is the National Child Abuse Hotline, or your local child abuse hotline, which you could find a link to on any Google search, any search engine that you care to use. And if you are an adult who has experienced abuse as a child, or if you're currently in a situation where you're being abused, I urge you to get help and find somebody that you can talk to. Pray about it. Ask the Lord to direct your path and go for it with that. And I guarantee, I'm going through counseling right now because of my past issues of sexual abuse and neglect and all of those things. And I have to say that even though I still have a lot of anxiety, talking about it helps. It helps to calm me down, and it helps to relieve some of that stress and tension and the feeling of overwhelmness that I've carried around for so many years. And so once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me for this conversation. And as always, be blessed.